So APCs. What is an APC?
Antigen-presenting cell.
Antigen-presenting cell. What does it do?
This is starting.
Presents an antigen. Perfect.
Oh, I know this. Okay.
Yeah. So
That whole.
think about a kid who comes to show and tell.
I remember.
He has his little
Okay.
dog.
God.
Dog has rabies. Okay.
Oh.
Dog has rabies. The kid's like 7, so you can't tell a dog has rabies. So the kid's feelings, but like the kid he wants to show the dog. Show and tell. He's like, I want to show my dog today. It's this rabid like bulldog, and it has rabies. And he's holding it. It's like freaking out, like foaming, you know. And he comes to the class and he says, "This is my dog, right?" Well, the antigen-presenting cells are the same thing. They're presenting something that causes harm, right? And so they come to this guy. They come to these guys and they say, "This is my antigen. Look at my antigen." And they show it to the class, right? But who do they show it to?
Teacher.
The teacher, right? Who's the teacher in the story?
T-cells. Helper T-cells.
T helper cells. Perfect. Sweet. Okay. So who can be an APC? What cells are APCs? B cells can be APCs, right? We normally think of them as antibody producing things, but this guy can have an antibody that's in the membrane there, and it'll actually grab onto an antigen, and he'll come over here and say, "Hey, look what I found." And then he'll say, "Huh, well, Jimmy, your dog was biting her leg off in class, and so we need to get rid of it." So he says, "This antigen that you just brought has these markers on it. Or I guess this pathogen you brought has these antigen markers on it, and you need to kill anything with those markers, because it's going to kill your buddy." So he goes back, he's like, "All right," shoots his dog, and then he starts shooting the dog that has rabies, right? Basically what's happening. Does that make sense? It makes sense though, right? So it can be a B cell, it can be a dendritic cell. Those are really common ones, they look kind of like this.
Can macrophages and neutrophils be?
Yeah, it could be them too.
Yeah.
Mostly they're dendritic cells though, they have these long arms that kind of reach out and grab things. And they swim up to the nodes, right? Where this is going down at. Okay, T helper cells, see this? And there's pathogen. Pathogen is anything that can cause a disease process in the body.
Okay.
Viruses, bacteria, anything that causes you to be sick. He has his little bumps on him. What do we call these things?
Antigens?
Antigens. They mark the cells, right? Well, these antigens are on this pathogen, and he says anything that has that antigen needs to be dead. So the teacher's order, the general's orders. So he talks to the B cells. Goes to the B cells and he says, "B cells, remember the pathogen you brought me? I have the antigens. Anything with that antigen, you need to kill it." B cells say, "Okay, that's good." And so they divide and multiply. We make tons of B cells. Okay, these B cells can divide into 2 types of cells. What are they?
Memory and antibody producing. I don't remember what it's called.
Yep. Memory B cells. Talk about them in a second. Or plasma cells. Okay. What are plasma cells?
Planes.
They're planes, right? And what do?
Drop bombs.
They drop bombs, right? And what are the bombs? Antibodies, right? Does that make sense? So B cells, yes, make antibodies, but more specifically, the guys who actually release antibodies are plasma cells. That's what actually is going to make antibodies and kill things. Is that right? Is this like ringing a bell? Do you remember this?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Remember this? Okay, so we make some plasma cells and they're going to release the antibodies. Well, we can also make memory B cells. What do those guys do?
They just stick around.
Exactly right.
Just
These are the
remember.
guys that work on the base in the army base, and they have these long file drawers, and they pull out a little thing and it has antigen pictures. Has a little picture of like, remember he gave him a picture and said this antigen needs to be dead. Well, he keeps on file a picture that has a picture of this antigen. Because now, this first process took, I don't know, 5 to 10 days. That's a horrible 5. 5 to 10 days. It's a really long time to be going on, right? So you go through this prodromal phase, this incubation phase, it's going on. This virus gets in your body, and it basically says, you know what, like, no one's really attacking me yet, I'm gonna start multiplying. It gets you sick, you start getting a fever, throwing up, whatever you're gonna do, right, with flu.
So by the time you're 6, you got infected a couple days before.
Yep. So people say, oh, I ate Taco Bell and it made me throw up. And you ate Taco Bell like an hour ago? No. You got food poisoning yesterday, and Taco Bell just solicited your stomach to throw up because you're already sick. That makes sense.
Huh.
Normally it's not, I mean, technically maybe it could be, but 90% of the time, like, it's the food that you ate a long time ago compared to the food you ate like a half hour ago. So memory B cells say, okay, well, the next time I see this antigen, I'm not going to be sick for 5 to 10 days. I'm going to try and get rid of this thing in like 2 days, 3 days, right? Like before I start throwing up, before I get those crazy things. So you get the same flu virus again. There's different strands. Let's say it's H. The big one last few years was H1N1. Oh, the H1N1's going to kill everyone.
Yeah.
Right? Swine flu's killing everyone. But basically, that's the strand, right? Maybe there's H2N2 next year, H1N3 next year. But the thing is that strand has certain antigen markers. So if your body gets injected with this in a vaccine, it's a dead virus. It's basically a capsule with no nucleus in it. It's been killed, but it has antigens on it. And your body gets this and it says, man, that's different. And so it goes through this, and what vaccines do is they elicit this response. So yeah, maybe you do get a fever and all those kind of things, but there's no virus to actually get you sick, if that makes sense. But it stimulates the immune response, so you possibly could get a fever maybe for like a day, but it's not going to actually do anything, right? But the whole thing is this, because now you have it in memory B cells. Because memory B cells can convert to plasma cells like really fast. So they're traveling through the blood and they hit this thing and say, whoa, I remember this. And they make B cells, they make plasma cells, make some antigens so we can go kill that virus really quick. Before it has time to kind of start growing, right? Okay, at the same time it goes and talks to who? Cytotoxic T-Cells, or killer T-cells, right?
It's kind of more viral, but sometimes bacterial.
Yeah, definitely more viral, sometimes bacterial too. I think this whole process is a lot more viral than it is bacteria. I think it does help kill bacteria, but more than anything, it's going to be a lot more viral stuff. Okay. So, what do these guys do?
So just kill it.
Yeah, they go and make a clone army, a bunch of killer T cells, and then they go over to a bunch of these guys. This is their normal body cells here. And this guy puts up a little flag. Oh, what are these markers called?
MHC1.
Oh, MHC1 and MHC2, there we go. Okay. MHC2 and MHC1.
Which are?
This is just like a means of communication. It's like a little thing that sticks out and communicates for you. It's like a flag. It's kind of like what I think about is like a string of two cans on the end. And we call the string of two cans MHC. That's how we talk to each other. It's how cells talk to each other. So like white blood cells communicate to each other through MHC markers. So MHC2 is how antigen-presenting cells talk to T helper cells.
Okay.
MHC1 is how these normal body cells talk to these guys who are going out to actually kill things. They basically say, hey, there's no virus in me. 'Cause the way viruses work is they inject into the body or into the cell, go to the nucleus and change the nucleus to start making, they basically become infected. But he's saying, you know what, I'm not affected. I'm not infected. Don't kill me, please. Then these guys, he says, you know what, I'm infected, and the MHC changes, and they say, well, that's not normal, we're going to kill this cell. So then they come in and they destroy this cell, right?
Cool.
Does that make sense? Sometimes you actually have T helper cells all the time. Sometimes you actually just have a cell out here that got infected before this even happened. You have a cell that got infected, and it just goes and talks to cytotoxic T cells, and it just says, hey guys, I'm infected. Like, I'm sick. I'm gonna infect the rest of the population of cells in our body if you don't kill me. And they say, all right, we're sorry, but I take Ron back and they shoot him. Right? for the hopes of saving the body though, right? The whole purpose is we're killing viruses here, we're not killing good things, right?
Okay.
But that's basically what's happening. You think about it, right? They say, okay, well, before you replicate viruses and kill us, we're gonna kill you. Does that make sense? And so what's going on is you think about this, but the thing is this response only elicits a small platoon of soldiers to come over. Okay? This response, because the way this communicates with you is called cytokines. Remember that word?
What is the cytokine that we see?
Cytokine's like a chemical communicator. This is like a marker on a cell.
No, what does it use? It uses, it's got like 8 and 4 in the, it isn't.
There's interleukin, like
Yeah,
1, 2, 3,
interleukin.
and 4, and whatever.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, lots of interleukins, but
That's right.
then that's a type of cytokine. I think he just wants you to know that it's cytokines. So T helper cells communicate through just chemical messengers that get released. They go and talk to B cells, they go and talk to these guys. And they cause like vasodilation, all this kind of stuff. And they say, hey, go attack these guys. But these guys are like, so this right here is like taking a match and trying to like kill something, okay? This right here is like pouring gas on the table and then taking a match and doing it. So this is like sending in the whole army. If you use cytokines, you release a whole army. If you just do this communication to cytotoxic T-cells, it's like reducing a platoon. So if you want to actually kill an actual legit infection, you're going to need to actually go through an APC and release cytokines through T helper cells. They help out a lot, right? The problem with AIDS is it destroys T helper cells. HIV destroys T helper cells. So you can see how that really weakens your immune system.
Yeah.
Now you're stuck to only this response. So if you get an actual sickness, it's going to be hard for you to fight it off, right? It's like trying to light a tree on fire with like a little match just holding on the trunk. It's possible, but it's going to take a long time, right? Does that make sense?
So do vaccinations don't exactly ensure that you won't really get sick? It just ensures that you'll have a quicker response?
Yeah, so what it does is your body is called adaptive immunity or specific immunity. You are now immune to that specific antigen. If, let's say, this is what they do for flu shots. They say, looking at the studies, they're actually pretty good. They look at the studies and they say over the years, they track viruses. It's called epidemiology. They track viruses and they just see how infections are traveling. And they say, we think this next year, the big flu virus is going to be H1N2 and H1N3. And so they make millions of vaccinations full of H1N and H1N2 and H1N3. But let's say it happens to be H1N4. Are those vaccinations that you got going to prevent you from that bug? They're not, right? Because your specific immunity is for H1N2 and H1N3. Does that make sense? And so it's called adaptive immunity because you're not born with this immunity. You have to learn it. Your body has to have a reaction to get it. Whereas other immunities that aren't adaptive, like fevers, if something goes wrong in the body, we just get a fever. And our body does that naturally. We don't have to adapt to that. A bacteria can't live in a certain environment, and so it raises the environment's temperature to try and kill the bacteria. And it tries to speed up the process of making cells. Does that make sense? And so it can prevent you from doing, because what the hope is that you'll get the virus and you'll kill it before it does anything. And they're actually really, really effective. Like with polio, measles, mumps, rubella, all those kind of things, right? They're actually really effective because now your body knows how to get it. It's just the problem is that the first time that you got polio, now this time you got it, but you didn't have the vaccine, your body doesn't know how to respond to it. And so it has time to incubate and grow and take over your body and actually cause the infection. Whereas otherwise you just kill it. That's a long explanation for a really small question. Sorry.